the writing craft book world has encountered a crazy new development because about a month ago, Jessica Brody released a book called Save the Cat, writes a YA novel. And so of course I read it, and this is going to be my review. This is an interesting one to review though, because of course there's the classic Save the Cat Writes a Novel, the Jessica Brody book that is a, #1 amazing recommended resource for writers. And so I've thought about how to structure this review a little bit. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna start, like I always do, by doing the pros and cons of this book as a book on its own. Then I'm going to answer the question, what is the difference between this book and the original Save the Cat Writes a Novel? And then finally, I am going to answer the question, if you read Save the Cat Writes a Novel, should you go ahead and invest in this YA version? So here we go, pros and cons to start with. So, pros. As with the original Save the Cat book, there are tons of examples, including fully worked examples at the end of each chapter for every genre. There are examples all from novels, which is obviously amazing. We love that. It's because it's a book about writing a novel. They are also all YA books. And if you want to write YA, having lots of YA examples, big pro. The next con, it doesn't actually define anywhere in this book YA versus adult, anywhere. So it doesn't go through distinguishing characteristics of YA. And there are things that make a book YA beyond the age of the protagonist. There's a lot of things actually in terms of reader expectations, length, etc. There's basically none of that. I thought there was maybe a word count chart somewhere in here. I can't find it. She addresses it briefly in the opening. So is young adult really different? Does it warrant its own guide? The stories are unique enough and have enough specific qualities to necessitate a book dedicated to them. Later on, we do talk about some of the qualities. So being a young adult is a transformative age. Storytelling is all about transformation. It's its own novel writing beast and it warrants its own guide. If for no other reason than to laser focus our study of story structure using exclusively young adult examples. Young adult in general tends to have tighter plotting, faster pacing, and smaller word counts, which means there's very little room for errors. Every page matters. Teens are used to and expect well-structured novels. It's as simple as that. So basically the only sort of differentiating factor she really gives is it's focused on teenagers, teenage time is very emotional, and they have tighter plotting, faster pacing. That sentence of, if for no other reason than to laser focus our study of story structure using exclusively young adult examples, that is what this book is. It is story structure, it's the Save the Cat story structure with young adult examples. So that could be a pro. I just said that the examples are a pro, but also a con. If you were expecting a guide as to the differentiators, this is not it. Con, I'm still unsure about these genres. I said that in my original review of the book. I say this in every single time I talk about this. It has cutesy names with like 3 conventions identified in each of them, and which means like they're simple and I guess they are usable, but I am still skeptical about whether these genres help a writer ensure they're really meeting reader expectations. And my suggestion is always to think in terms of both like commercial genres and to look at like things like story grid. Next pro is also about the genres. I like the internal focus of them. I like how they, there's a very much a character journey that they're focused on versus external elements. So you could have a dude with a problem and a golden fleece, and they both have lots of car chases, but there is a difference between them because it's really focused on that internal journey. I think that's really useful and helpful for ensuring that the plot is connected to the character's development, the character's arc. I really love that about the genres, and they're practical. They have these elements, they're simple, they're straightforward. Next pro, the beat sheet is 10 out of 10 great. It's no nonsense, it's simple, it's understandable. Other people have talked at length about how great the Save the Cat beat sheet is. It's here. It's the Save the Cat beat sheet. It's great. The con for me, there's no content in this book on setting, the larger cast of characters beyond the hero, style, or voice. Again, that's not what Save the Cat is. Save the Cat is about plot, but don't expect those things from this book. Additionally, like style and voice in YA can be quite different from the voice that's expected in adult. So it seems a little bit to me like a missed opportunity to not at least comment on it, but like, that's not what the book is. You're not gonna get those things from a Save the Cat book. It's about the plot structure. The next con, because just so we can end positively, there's a section in this book, and it's a tiny con, but there's a section in this book where she's like, okay, what are your life lessons? What are your B stories? And she lists these like 10 universal life lessons. Forgiveness of self or others, love, including self-love, family love, romantic love. Those aren't universal life lessons to me. To me, a life lesson is like, when you do X, Y happens. Even something like, it's important to trust people in order to form good relationships, or like, you have to, open yourself up to love in order to be happy, whatever it is. Those are life lessons. These, I swear to God, these are topics, and I find it annoying. I don't think this is a great place to go for like themes and controlling ideas. This list specifically, a lot of writers struggle with like, what is the theme of the story? How does it connect back to the A story, etc. I would suggest looking at Robert McKee, Story Grid, Anatomy of Story for kind of like themes, life lessons, like B story examples, because I think they are more concrete and useful than survival, including the will to live. No offense, but like, I don't get it. It doesn't work for me. And then our final pros. The pitching advice at the end is really useful. I always like that section. It's a great formula. It helps writers. There's, again, nothing specific to YA, but the pitching advice is great. And then it is an easy, fun read. I was actually at Tomorrowland, and I'm gonna pause just to put some pictures of me at Tomorrowland here because it was so much fun. And I would have to like take like an hour break a day just to like go to the side and chill for a minute. And I was actually reading Save the Cat Writes a YA Novel at Tomorrowland. And it was engaging. I enjoyed it. So it was engaging enough to like distract me from everything that was going on. So that's like saying a lot. You can get through it quick. Unlike the Anatomy of Genre, because like, holy fuck, John Truby, I still haven't read that book. I've like perused it. It's so long. This is nice and short and sweet and lovely. Now, those are the pros and cons of the book on its own as like, what might you expect from a book about plotting a YA novel? Now let's talk about how it's different from Save the Cat. Now, before we get on to the what is the difference, if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up so I know you like this kind of content, and subscribe. I do lots of craft book reviews, talk about writing advice, all that kind of stuff. Overall, the big difference is, number one, all of the examples are from YA and they're from books. And like, I know that this is a book one, so obviously the examples are books, but like, thank freaking goodness. A lot of the craft books that are like about story structure are screenwriting books, like the original Save the Cat, Anatomy of Story. And I am so sick about hearing about Chinatown and Casablanca. Like, can we find another movie? The next big difference, there are 2 new chapters. The first new chapter is called Customizing the Beat Sheet. And this is a very, very, very valuable chapter. It covers writing a multi-POV novel and how you can have, you can handle the beat sheets differently. Whether it's doing like a combined beat sheet for all the heroes, having separate beat sheets for them, having sort of a combination. It's really good stuff. And I think a lot of people who are using this and trying to write multi-POV, I think it could be extremely helpful. We talk about early and late catalysts. So catalysts that come in like the first page or like page 100 or whatever. I think that's really useful because you often get YA novels where the catalyst happens much, much earlier than in an adult book, going back to that fast-paced tight plotting kind of thing. So that's useful. She also talks about a double bump technique for the catalyst, kind of where you have like a cause and effect. She has a bit on prologues and whether or not that's the opening image, how that fits in. She talks about flashbacks and backstory, how those fit into the beat sheet, where you're most likely to see flashbacks and backstory and where you shouldn't see it at all. Again, really great information. I think it answers a lot of questions that new writers have about those topics. And then she also talks about negative character arcs and kind of the reverse beat sheet. Again, I think that's a clear area that was kind of missing. And then the second new chapter is about writing a series. So what she does is she takes what she calls the 5 foundational beats, and she lays out how they have been arranged for different kinds of series. So like a duology, a trilogy, a tetralogy, a 7-book series, and kind of lays out with examples where they put those beats. I think that's super helpful. Is All Is Lost in book 3 or 4, like something like that. Really great worked examples. If you're writing a series, could be incredibly useful to you. Another thing that was different was that for some reason, the chatty writing style, which I talk about a lot in my initial review, it annoyed me a lot less. So that's a good thing, but I might just be immune. Shut the front door. Why is that a thing that we write in a book? Like, ugh. Anyways, whatever. So those are the differences. And so then comes our final question. If I've read Save the Cat Writes a Novel, should I read this book? The answer is maybe. If you're writing YA and you want more examples from YA specifically, like more worked examples, more beat sheets, then yeah, definitely buy it. If you're writing YA and you like feel pretty comfortable and like you've done a lot of analysis of YA stories yourself, you don't really need it. There's not going to be anything super new. If you're writing a multi-POV book, I think there's really good stuff in here, especially if it's a YA multi-POV book. I would maybe grab it because the dissection of like multi-POV and in the new chapter and in some of the worked examples, like she beat sheets out One of Us is Lying. It's awesome. Highly, highly recommend. I think you would get a lot of value from this. If you're like obsessed with Save the Cat generally and you want to just like eat all the content, obviously get it. It's good. And then if you're writing a series, you may or may not find this useful. If you're writing a YA series, again, like it's just, if you want to see worked examples, great. If you want to learn how to write a series, maybe don't pick up this book for that purpose. The next question is, I have not read Save the Cat Writes a Novel. So which one should I get? Should I get Save the Cat Writes a Novel, or should I get Save the Cat Writes a YA novel? Now, if you write YA, like kind of obviously, I would read this one. If you don't write YA, you still might want to get this one instead of Save the Cat Writes a Novel. The reason being, it's more recent and more updated. Formatting of the headers is different. Some of the fluff is taken out. I generally like how she presents things a little bit better in this version. And there's that section on multi-POV and series. And I don't think there's enough differences between them that like you would go really wrong if you wrote an adult novel using Save the Cat Writes a YA novel, because it's just Save the Cat with YA examples, and like you can totally go to Blake Snyder's website and just like get a few adult novels and just like read it. Or do it on your own, which is probably even more valuable. Obviously, it's up to you. My suggestion is this is a really good book. Hopefully, I've given you some clues and some information to help you make that decision. If you have read the book, please let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.